Hello please, I'm Wolfie for the win. Pleased to bring you the first episode of Mindgamer Battlefield 4. This show is dedicated to bringing a more brainy, analytical approach to multiplayer games. It's always entertaining to watch super talented players show off their skills, but don't you sometimes wonder how they got to be so good? Shooters are known for being high-speed, twitch-based affairs, but in order to rise above the rest of the crowd, you can't just play fast. You have to play smart. That's why I call this show Mindgamer, because the skills I teach you today are skills that anybody from novices to pros can use to outplan, outthink, and outplay their opponents. This episode will focus on IFVs, Infantry Fighting Vehicles. I tend to refer to them all as LAVs. Despite their name, these underappreciated monsters are more than capable of holding their own against unarmored and armored targets alike. The footage I'm about to show you is from one single life driving an LAV on Hainan Resort. This is my score at the end of the round. As we watch the footage of how it got there, I'll not only discuss the decisions that led to my success, but the mistakes that I made along the way as well. I always want to stress that no matter how well you play, there's always something you can improve on. This is as true for a level 1 private as it is for a level 100 colonel. For the LAV, my preferred loadout is the 25mm shell, tow missile, active protection, zoom optics, and reactive armor. If you're interested in why I prefer these weapons, or if you're looking for a discussion on the other options available for LAVs, I've created a short supplemental video. Let's get started. When driving vehicles, you can swap between the first and third person views using the toggle crouch key. I usually stay in first person because it's much easier to aim that way, but when I'm stopped to cap a point or when I'm traveling through close quarters, I generally like to swap to third person to get a better sense of my surroundings. You can use third person to look around corners or above obstacles. This is really nice if you want to keep track of an enemy without putting yourself in their line of sight. At the start of a round, you should always help cap points on your own side of the map. As a vehicle, you're often the first to reach an uncapped point. Once you capture it, it can serve as a forward spawn for the rest of your team, speeding up that initial push towards the middle of the map. While it may be tempting to put the pedal to the metal and gun straight for the enemy base, more often than not you'll simply end up running ahead of your own team, putting you in the middle of the enemy territory without any backup. I'm going to stress this point many times throughout this video. A vehicle without infantry support is extremely vulnerable and should be played very cautiously. Don't forget that LAVs are amphibious. They can travel through deep water that tanks cannot. This can open up new opportunities for approaches and escapes, but you should be cautious when you're using it. There's a small period of immobility when you first transition from land to water, and once you're in amphibious mode you're much less maneuverable. Generally, I avoid going into water unless it's absolutely necessary. As I start capping D, I notice an attack boat on my minimap. It only appears for a moment, and if I hadn't been paying attention I would have missed it. From this brief moment I have some useful information that I can use to guide my approach. First, its icon doesn't move much during the time it's up, so I know it's sitting still. Second, I see the boat is pointing to the northwest. Boats have a very large, slow turning radius, and they don't move backwards very quickly. If it tries to escape, it can only really run forward, and I can see that I'm in a position to cut it off. With all this in mind, I decide to move forward and attack the boat. Here, I make a slight mistake by aiming for the body of the boat instead of the back. If you aim for the back, you can also kill any gunners and repairmen that are supporting the boat. As the boat runs away, I drive backwards to keep up with it. Since I anticipated the boat trying to escape, I wait until I have a clear shot before using my tow missile. Once I get the mobility hit, he's dead in the water. One quick note. An enemy driver who knows he's about to lose the vehicle fight will always bail out before the vehicle is destroyed. If you have the reaction time, always kill the driver first. An empty vehicle is no longer a threat, but a pissed off engineer with an RPG still is. Most of the time though, the driver gets out too late and dies with the exploding vehicle. Paying attention to my minimap nets me an easy infantry kill, and then I notice an enemy LAV icon directly ahead of me. As an LAV driver, you must develop a deep, primal loathing of other armored vehicles. They are as fast as you, they are as strong as you, and they are the only other entity on the map capable of killing you mano a mano. When the icon for one pops up on your screen, a little switch in the base of your brain should flip on, and you should start formulating a plan to end him. Maybe not now, maybe not in the next 5 minutes, but eventually. You will live, he will die. Alright, back to the game. If you spot an enemy vehicle before he spots you, don't engage him until you know you can finish the job. Otherwise, if he escapes, that same little switch will now be flipped on inside his head, and he'll become your nemesis. Sneak up to him like a 10-ton ninja. I failed to heed my own advice here, and I start shooting at him while I'm traveling in the opposite direction. Some infantry throws a grenade at me, but I don't care. The switch is flipped. The enemy LAV is all I see. Luckily for me, he's busy engaging my own team's anti-air, and 2 tows and a couple 25mm shells net me a free kill and some peace of mind. I glimpse a rib boat zooming towards D, but there's no point in taking pot shots. I spot it with Q, keep an eye on it on the minimap, and park where it lands for another guaranteed kill. You'll notice in my driving that I tend to stick to flat ground whenever possible. Though the LAV is more than capable of traversing bumpy terrain, doing so throws your aim all over the place and makes it difficult to spot potential threats. You also run the risk of getting stuck on map geometry or encountering landmines hidden in the brush. As you spend more time as a vehicle pilot, you'll start to get a sense of what things you can drive through and what things will stop you dead in your tracks. This is actually a very important skill to acquire, because it's not always obvious in the heat of battle what items you'll get caught up on when trying to escape from a dangerous situation. Trees and fences fall into the former category, while fence posts and concrete barriers typically belong to the latter. Here, I make another mistake. 2, actually. I spot an easy kill in the distance, fire 1 shot, and then realize that I'm stuck reloading. My first mistake is not keeping my main gun fully loaded. In servers with default settings on, there's no penalty to reloading when there's still bullets in your magazine, and you should take advantage of this by having 12 shots ready at all times. My second, more subtle mistake is focusing on a target at long range that's no threat to me without first scanning my surroundings. This would have been a perfect time for the enemy to sneak up on me and blow me up while I was distracted. Noticing that my team is pushing up towards B, I move in to give fire support. If I were alone, I would never push this far into an occupied point. There's a high probability of enemies spawning behind you and cutting off your escape, or of them sitting on rooftops and raining down rockets without you being able to shoot back. The best thing you can do to help capture a point is to use your vehicle to flank the enemy and to destroy their cover. I notice infantry behind me on the minimap, and I turn to shoot it. Here, I make another mistake. Did you spot it? Let's rewind a little bit. There. How did I not notice that guy? I looked straight at him. You've heard me say a few times by now that I use the minimap to acquire targets. While that is a good skill to have, over-reliance on it can lead to easily missed opportunities like this one. While missing a kill generally isn't the end of the world, missing this one comes back to bite me in the not-too-distant future. Suddenly, an enemy LAV appears on my minimap. I double-check my ammo and notice that it's a bit low, but I also see that my teammates are already shooting rockets at the enemy, so I'm confident that I can win this fight. Unfortunately for me, I take an RPG in the back from the guy that I failed to spot earlier. Even worse, it mobility hits me, and now I have no choice but to commit to the fight. I hit with my first tow, but I mess up trying to curve my second one around the corner. The enemy LAV retreats, and instead of chasing I decide to back up and finish off the infantry that's between me and my escape route. I back up into a ditch and I start taking fire from the LAV again, but since I know that he's already low, I calmly hit him with another tow to finish him off. At this point, I decide to retreat to repair, just as another LAV shows up on the scene. Time for a random, but important tip. A tow missile will follow your crosshair, even when it's not selected as a weapon. The time it takes for an LAV to reload the tow missile is roughly the same amount of time it takes for you to unload all of your 25mm shells. The best way to maximize your damage output on a target is to open up with a tow missile, swap to your primary, unload 12 shots, and then immediately fire another tow. The full combo looks something like this. Perfectly executed, you can see how devastating this combo can be. As I'm about to pull over and repair, I get hit by another RPG, so I keep running. As I do, I proactively engage my active protection in case my attacker tries to finish me off. I round the corner, hide behind a rock, and start to repair. I haven't yet talked much about the actual driving part of being in an LAV, but I will say now that being able to drive in reverse is one of those skills that truly separates the good from the great. There will be many situations where you'll need to retreat out of an area fast, and more often than not you won't have the time or space to turn the whole vehicle around. In a few cases, you'll even have to reverse out while still looking out for threats in front of you. When this happens, you'll have to rely on the minimap to avoid running into any obstacles. This is another reason why I prefer to stick to flat roads. If you look at the minimap, they're clearly marked and they're relatively easy to follow. As long as you're on them, you can be sure you won't run into anything that'll impede your escape. I prioritize capping points that are closer to my team's main base because it reduces the chances of the enemy spawning behind me. As I move into the cramped ship that is D, I switch to third person to look out for threats. You'll also notice that I constantly alternate between driving forwards and backwards. This is so that if an enemy tries to C4 me from the front or back, I'll either drive away from them and make them drop their explosive on the ground, or run them over when they get too close. It may seem silly, but I've gotten quite a few kills this way. I spot another enemy on my minimap, but I don't see anyone on the ground where he should be. Remember that the minimap isn't able to tell you anything about the elevation of a person or object. My only logical conclusion in this situation is that the enemy must have parachuted from a plane or a helicopter and landed on top of the tanker ship at D. There's nothing I can do about that, since I can't aim that high, so I decide to let my team take care of it. In these next 3 kills, you can see how useful the splash on the 25mm shell can be. Even though my shots naturally have quite a bit of spread and are being fired from uneven ground, every single one manages to deal damage because I splash them off a nearby wall. When fighting infantry with the 25mm shells, always aim at the target's feet. The enemy will get hit by the splash even if you don't land a shot on their body. If the target is above you or if his feet are behind cover, try to aim at a nearby solid object, like a wall or ceiling, and look for the hit markers around your crosshair to confirm the hits. Suddenly, 2 enemy LAV icons. Ruh-roh. This could be really bad if they were close enough to chase me down, or it could be no big deal at all if they're far away. This time, my minimap doesn't help me decide which is the case, so it's time to bust out the map.
I'm the map, I'm the map,
No! No, not that one. This one. It's always good to have a look at your map every now and then, just to get a better tactical sense of the battlefield. Even a quick glance at your overhead view can tell you lots about the current flow of the match, and it can even give you the tools to predict enemy movement in the near future. Looking here, I see that the enemy holds points B and C. Point C looks to be under assault from all sides, while the enemies at point B seem to be focused on my teammates attacking from point A, who are to the south and the southeast. I figure the best way to go is to hit the enemies at B from the north, while their backs are turned. I duck behind a hill and go into third person, just to get a peek at what's up ahead before committing myself to that direction. It's a good thing I did though, since I catch the enemy LAV coming straight down the road. When I know he won't be able to escape my ambush, I rush out and hit him with my full combo. As I do this, I hit my active protection to minimize the damage that I take. One problem with using active protection though, is that the enemy LAV shells start to explode in front of you, blocking your vision. While it might seem impossible to maintain your aim in this situation, you must never forget how useful the minimap can be. Notice how it actually highlights your cone of vision for you? If you can't see past the explosions, just center the middle of this cone over the enemy's icon and fire away. As long as you don't move your crosshairs up or down too far, you should be able to hit them. Using this technique, I land a second toe for the kill before my active protection even runs out. I failed to notice that an enemy had managed to bail out before the LAV exploded, and I barely dodged a rocket. As I return fire, I start getting hit by a second LAV, and I know I'm in trouble now. I start backing up in hopes that I can retreat deep enough into my own team's territory to discourage pursuit. However, I get stuck on a rock long enough that he catches up, and he does a good job of hitting me while he's on the chase. Then I get caught on another obstacle, and I know I'm screwed unless I do something either insanely clever or stupidly desperate. So I ram him. Whenever you start a vehicle battle at an HP disadvantage, you must recognize that the only way to win is to not get hit. Usually this means making smart use of cover, anti-measures, and hit and run tactics. In this case, it means taking my vehicle and slamming it into his so that his aim gets thrown off and he ends up missing most of his shots. This tactic is not without its disadvantages. Notice that my aim shakes all over the place too, and I actually end up missing my first tow missile. Nonetheless, most people don't know how to handle this situation, and they try to hold forward in an attempt to push through this death hug. I use this to my advantage here by eventually backing up and allowing my enemy to zoom past me. He loses control, swerves into a rock, and exposes the weakly armored rear of his vehicle to me. I perform an impromptu colonoscopy with my remaining tow missile to deal a whopping 55 damage. My active protection comes up just in time to block his next volley of shots, which I answer in kind with a volley of my own. Quick thinking, and a little bit of desperation, nets me my second LAV kill in the span of a single minute. The shells of destroyed vehicles actually explode, harmlessly, when rammed with enough speed, so don't be afraid to slam into them if they're in your way. I notice an enemy moving through the brush, so I spot him and then aim at the orange Dorito to kill him. Now that both enemy LAVs are temporarily out of commission, I can resume my plan of flanking Point B from the north with relative fearlessness. Through pure luck, an enemy boat gets stuck on the bridge to my right. This time, I do aim at the back of the boat, and I kill 2 passengers. However, I probably should have fired my tow missile first to get a mobility hit. As it is, the boat manages to dodge my first missile, but not my second. I start taking hits from another LAV, but this one's too far away to fight. I decide instead to pop active protection, kill the enemy infantry staring right at me, and run away. I prefer to play it safe, and I run pretty far back before I start repairing. I'd rather spend the extra time reaching a secure area than risk getting sniped or blown up while I'm exposed. Speaking of repairing, try not to let your guard down while fixing up your vehicle. Run circles around your LAV to make sure no one's running up to hijack it, and also keep an eye on the sky for any cruise missiles or artillery rockets or infantry parachuting in. Seeing that Point B is still owned by the enemy, I decide to take another shot at it. As I loop around, an enemy jeep zooms by. When it passes behind the rock, the enemy jumps out. You can tell because of the gray jeep icon that appears on the minimap. As soon as the vehicle is abandoned, it shows up as a gray icon even if it wasn't spotted beforehand. The reverse is also true. An empty vehicle taken by the enemy disappears from the minimap until it's spotted. Putting these facts together can help you make decisions in battle. Say you're fighting another vehicle and it retreats behind a hill or building. If you suddenly notice that the vehicle's icon has turned gray, then it's pretty safe to assume that the enemy is either repairing it or has abandoned it, and you should press your attack. If you're in the middle of an enemy base and a vehicle disappears from the minimap, you now know that an enemy has just hopped into that vehicle, and you should react accordingly. It takes me a moment to realize that the driver bailed, but once I do, I go back and hunt him down. I don't know what that jet is doing there, but it doesn't really matter. In retrospect, I should have left it alone. It was the enemy's jet, and by killing it, I started its respawn timer. If I had ignored it, it would have taken a longer time for the other team to get another jet. I forget to reload again, and because of that, I let the enemy mine-laying engineer get away. If you let an enemy reach cover, you might as well move on to a new target, because the first guy is definitely not going to expose himself to additional fire. By aiming elsewhere, you can even trick him into thinking you've forgotten about it, and when he makes a break for it, you can go back and finish him off. I spot my original target trying to swim across the water, but my LAV can't aim low enough to hit him. This is an easily solved problem though. Just back up. The further you are from your target, the more things are included in your vertical field of fire. A quick glance at the minimap gives me another easy kill. I then notice that the enemy has captured Point E, so to stop them from spawning behind me, I back up to go help cap it. Since my teammates are already on the point, I want to focus on the outer perimeter, where enemies might be hiding out of my teammates' line of sight. When enemies spawn on a point that you're trying to cap, they'll spawn far away from the flag and out of your line of sight. Smart opponents will use this to their advantage by taking the time to set up a strong defensive position before attacking you. This is why I generally don't advise trying to capture an enemy point by yourself. You need teammates to flank the enemy. I get tricked by a stupid plant into running into the big rock that was hiding behind it. This might sound silly, but after enemy vehicles, trees and bushes might be your second most dangerous enemy. I'm serious. For you, an ideal battleground would be a flat field with nowhere for people to hide, right? What plants do is offer great places to hide for both enemy infantry and planted explosives. And they're everywhere. I actually go out of my way to run trees over, just to clear the area up if I'd ever need to come back later. And even then, sometimes the trees fall down in such a way as to stick to your vehicle and to block your view. Plants, man. Not even once. I notice an enemy holding up my team's attempt to capture E, so I move in to help out. Let's take a look at the flag capture status bar for a moment. It may appear to be a simple part of your HUD, but like many other small details in this game, it can give you a lot of information if you know how to interpret it. Right now, the meter is slowly going down. All that means is that in the immediate vicinity of the flag, there are more members of my team than there are enemies. There are a total of 3 of us, so there can only be a maximum of 2 of them. There was that one guy I spotted before on the minimap, but I don't know if there is a second. Then the progress bar stops, which means that there are equal numbers of people from both teams near the flag. Now I know for sure that there are 3 enemies hiding somewhere in those bungalows. I kill one, and that lets us resume capping the point again. I've destroyed the house on the right, so the remaining enemies must be in the other 2. They don't really have anywhere to run, so I take my time to circle around and check the leftmost house first. If I wanted to avoid having to play hide and seek with infantry in the future, what I would do here is blow out the walls in every building. Sometimes, it's a good idea to do just that. For example, Point G in Goldmud Railway becomes a lot harder to infantry cap when it looks like this. One enemy is right there, but again I'm at the lower limit of my aiming angle. I just shoot at the ceiling to hit him with the splash damage while I reposition. The houses are so small that my second volley of shots manages to kill the guy I spotted, plus his teammate that I didn't even know was there. All 3 enemies are now dead and accounted for, but I examined the other buildings just in case one of their squad members spawned in on them before they died. Seeing that the point is all clear, I decide now to turn my attention to the front lines of the battle. You'll notice that I tend to avoid the whole area between the hotel and the ocean. That part of the map is just too bumpy, too leafy, and it has too many little curbs and rocks that I can get my LAV stuck on. Not to mention that being in the shadow of the resort means that I could have explosives rain down on me at any time, and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Hey, it's 2 LAVs again, but this time they're close, and they're headed to Point E. This could be bad, but I wait to see if they notice me first. It doesn't seem like they do, so now I have to decide how to best handle this new threat. I have to attack soon. The element of surprise is just too valuable to give up by delaying or running away. The only question is, which LAV do I go for first? Let's think this through. If I were to strike at the leader of the armor column, then everyone behind him would know and they would all jump in to defend their teammate. However, if I were to channel the spirit of the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park 2 and pick off those in the rear first, there's a chance that those in front might not notice in time. I start to move in with this as my plan, but all good plans should be adaptable. I notice that the front LAV has come to rest on the beach where it's relatively exposed, whereas my original target is further away and has easy access to cover behind rocks and trees. I switch targets and I quickly blow up the first LAV. Out of habit, I back up as I reload, and doing so lets me spot an enemy engineer nearby. Luckily for me, the second LAV took damage from my team's Little Bird and is sitting still trying to repair. I swap to my main gun and I start shooting at it while my tow is still in flight. You should know that this trick is great, but it doesn't work at very long ranges. That's because then you have to aim above your target to compensate for the bullet drop, and doing so will of course cause your tow missile to fly harmlessly over your target's head. The little bird comes back and finishes its prey off, so I turn my attention to some infantry along the beach. I damage but fail to kill the guy, who then ducks behind the rock for cover. I pull up and wait for him to make a break for it, but he plays it smart and stalls for time by staying behind his cover. I'm in the middle of enemy territory, and I can't afford to focus on this guy for too long, or else one of his teammates might sneak up on me with a vehicle or some C4. Besides, I noticed earlier that he shot a grenade launcher at me. That means he must be assault class, so he's not a big threat anyways. I scan E for any infantry hiding in the buildings, when I notice an enemy icon on my minimap that's pointing right at me. This worries me, because normally infantry icons point in the other direction as they try to run away from me. If an enemy is staring right at you, there's the possibility that they've got some heavy weaponry pointed in your direction. I pop my active protection too late to stop his RPG, but he gets caught between a rock and a hard place. Which is me, if that wasn't clear. Again, I circle the perimeter of the area picking off targets as my team caps the point. Meanwhile, let's talk about movement. LAVs have 3 speeds: a slow crawl you do by holding down Control, a default speed, and a boost you get by holding down Shift. Most of the time, you'll be boosting around because it's fast and it keeps you mobile. But sometimes, you have to make a tight turn. What you should know is that your turn radius is proportional to your speed, so if you keep boosting around the corner, you'll end up making a very wide turn. Going around the corner in default speed is better, but still not great. You might think to hold down Control to decelerate and get a tight turn, but I find that this is slow, and you can actually end up overturning right into the corner you were trying to go around. What I do instead is boost until I'm almost at the corner, release both my forward key and the boost key, and then let the momentum fuel my turn. When I start to slow down, I engage my boost again to accelerate out of the turn. This lets you round corners with barely any loss in speed. Don't worry if this all sounds like a lot to remember. If you put enough time into driving LAVs, you'll start to do these things without even really thinking about them. It's not like you can stop time in game whenever you have a tactical decision to make anyways. What'll happen over time is that you'll start to recognize specific scenarios that you've encountered before, and you'll remember what strategies worked before, and what strategies did not. Now, I have no idea what this enemy anti-air tank is doing so deep in my team's territory, but I'm not gonna pass on a free kill. This guy gives a nice demonstration of why I don't like off-roading with vehicles. It's very easy to get stuck, just like he does. AA tanks are only a threat to you if they have Zuni rockets, and even then you should be able to take them out first. I spot a scout chopper that looks pretty juicy, but I can't aim that high. Scout choppers actually go down pretty quickly to the 25mm cannon, because what ends up happening is that your splash damage kills everyone inside the chopper long before you actually destroy the vehicle itself. Oh well, maybe some other time. Instead, I decide to turn towards the buggy that I notice on my minimap. The driver bails out before I can spot him, but he makes an interesting series of poor decisions. First, instead of staying under the cover of the bridge, he comes up onto the road. Now, I'm kind of at a weird angle where I can't quite hit him yet, but instead of taking his time to run, he decides to pull out his RPG. Now, a single engineer out in the open with an RPG is not too big of a threat. I could probably absorb the hit and just repair after I kill him. However, it's generally advisable to avoid any damage at all if you can, because you never know what other threats might show up. What if his RPG gets a mobility hit on me, freezing me in place while the mobile artillery finishes me off? It's a risk that I can't afford to take, so I hit my active protection and I block his shot. Now, active protection is a bit tricky to use. A couple seconds of invulnerability is an incredibly strong tactical asset, so you never want to waste it. You generally want to wait until after the enemy points their RPG or javelin or vehicle turret at your direction before you activate your active protection. Even better would be to activate it while the projectile is in flight, but generally I don't advise doing this unless the projectile is being fired from far away. You see, active protection actually has a slight delay between you pushing the button and it turning on. And in Battlefield 4, the graphics for rockets and tank shells tend to actually lag slightly behind the part of them that deals the damage. You can actually be hit by a rocket that, from your point of view, is still a couple of meters away. At short ranges, if you wait to see the rocket being fired before you hit active protection, it normally won't kick in until after the rocket hits you. Here's what I mean. Watch the tank shell and also my armor level. I take damage between this frame and this frame, but the shell is still there, it hasn't hit me. Only 3 frames later do we see the explosion decal appear on the road. Again, the same thing happens where I take damage before the shell visually makes contact. So the lesson is, hit active protection when you think the enemy is about to fire, not when you actually see them fire, because it might be too late. As I turn around, I notice that an artillery truck actually was trying to kill me. I can follow its smoke trail back to somewhere over there, but I bring up my map to pinpoint its exact location. I hit it with a tow to stop it from running away, and then I finish it off with a few shots. I get hit by some rocket though, and as I back up I notice a teammate trying to repair me. Now what I do next might frustrate some of you engineer players, but let me explain. I keep moving as my teammate tries to repair me. Now I'm not doing this to make his job harder. I want to keep mobile because whatever hit me is going to try to hit me again, and sitting still just makes my enemy's job easier. Your first priority should always be to localize the threat and deal with it before stopping to get reps. It does your repairman no good if you sit still and get C4'd or mobility killed while he's fixing you up. Getting to cover lets me set up an ambush on this LAV. I botch it by missing my tow, but everything turns out okay. The minimap alerts me to an infantry behind me, who I then quickly deal with. I move up the road between E and B again, and it's a great vantage point that allows me to fire on basically half the map. It's also hard for anyone to sneak up on me while I'm here, because enemies coming from C have to first run across the lawn, swim across the water, and then climb up to shore. Enemies from B have to walk up this long, flat road with virtually no cover. I want to push into B again, since there's bound to be tons of exposed enemies there, but there's really no infantry around to support me. If I go in alone, I also risk being flanked from C, which could be potentially dangerous. I head back towards the hotel to see if there's anything I can do, but a quick glance at the map pretty much shows that my teammates have it under control. In fact, this whole half of the map feels pretty empty, which must mean that the majority of the fighting must be happening between C and A. I decide to flank B again, and along the way I pick up a gunner. Hooray! I love gunners. A skilled companion can turn your vehicle into an unstoppable death machine. They can spot enemies for you, they can shoot enemies trying to sneak up behind you, they can deal with infantry as you focus on enemy armor, they can shoot rockets at enemy armor, they can repair you mid-battle, they can take out choppers overhead, the list goes on. However, playing with a gunner will require you to adjust your playstyle a bit. First of all, you're going to want to drive more slowly and deliberately if you want to give your gunner a chance to hit anything. It's ridiculously hard to aim the LMG while the vehicle is bumping up and down and turning left and right. So what I like to do is drive up to a vantage point, say this spot on Hainan Resort, or the overpass on Flood Zone, and let my gunner go to town while I take pot shots and keep an eye out for threats. You'll get a ton of vehicle assists, and your gunner will love you for giving him all these free kills. Second, protect your teammate. You might be tempted to put this additional firepower to use by playing more aggressively, but I strongly encourage you not to overdo it. A teammate that spawns in your vehicle only to die when you swan dive into a lake of RPGs and mines is probably not going to want to help you the second time around. Think of it as now your driving is responsible for the lives of 2 people instead of 1. If they jump out to repair, protect them. If you need to move, tell them to get in before you take off. Respect your teammates' lives, and they'll respect yours. Finally, good communication is key. If you have a microphone, there's no excuse not to use the squad voice chat. And don't be afraid to break the silence. I usually find that once one person in a squad speaks up, everybody starts to talk. I'm actually constantly talking to my passenger here, but the recording software didn't pick it up. Whenever I'm driving with the squad mate, I'll use the VoIP for basically everything. I'll use it to tell them to stop shooting so I can sneak up on another vehicle, or to let them know when it's safe to get out and repair, or to ask them to hop out and RPG this tank that I'm fighting, things like that. I'll even use it just to let them know where I'm thinking of going next, just to keep them in the loop. In return, good gunners will tell me if there's an enemy sneaking up behind me, or if they need me to move so that they can get a better fire angle, or if a jet is about to make a strafing run, and so on. A gunner can be so much more than just a turret sitting on top of your vehicle, but you have to have good communication to make the relationship work. You'll notice that as I'm shelling B, I keep getting locked onto. Normally, once someone has a lock on you, as indicated by a flat tone, they'll immediately fire their ordnance, and the tone will change to a rapidly beeping one. If that doesn't happen, it usually means that a recon is locking onto you with their PLD. When this happens, don't panic. Just follow the helpful white arrow on your screen to where the recon is, and shoot him. Even if you don't hit him, most recons will dive for cover and break the lock. If an enemy uses that lock on to fire something at you, drive behind a rock or something to break the line of sight. Once the line of sight is broken, the lock is broken, and any missiles fired using it will miss. I decide that I've had enough of this silliness, and I look for targets closer to me, when I get hit by a LAW rocket. Now, how do I know it's a LAW? Listen very closely to when I get hit. Do you hear that incoming missile beeping that happens after the explosion? Out of all the anti-armor weapons available to engineers, only the LAW has this feature, because for a brief moment before impact it actually homes in on your vehicle and explodes above it. It's important to identify whether or not you're being attacked with the LAW, because the LAW is the only rocket launcher that cannot be stopped by active protection. So when you get hit by one, don't bother activating countermeasures. Just hunt down your attacker, or retreat. I tell my gunner to wait until we get to cover before repairing, and then as he fixes me up, I keep an eye out for threats. I spot a boat headed towards D, and I also notice that the enemy team is almost out of tickets, so I say, why not? Let's go kill us a boat.
Thanks for the help, guys.
Along the way, I run into an enemy LAV, and I unleash my full combo on him. By waiting to use my active protection until after he turns to shoot me, I manage to take him out without losing a single point of armor. The beeping warning tone tells me that someone has fired a lock-on weapon at me, and I see that the indicator tells me it's coming from the left, so I back up behind the building to break the lock. I then frantically race down to the shore to try and kill the enemy boat before the round ends. I kill the infantry in the water, land my first tow missile to disable the boat, and fire off my second just as the round ends. Dang it, maybe next time. That just about wraps it up for this episode. Thanks for sticking around. I hope I managed to teach you some new tricks today. Despite all that we've covered, we've only really begun to scratch the surface of LAV driving, and I also want to make an advanced tutorial for tanking as well. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with all your friends or post it to your clan's forums. It's always encouraging for me to see people enjoying the videos that I make. Anyways, I hope to see you all on the battlefield. Oh, and enjoy this bonus clip.